To begin with a short list of issues that I regard as priorities in trying to make this bill less disastrously bad. I begin by associating myself with every word said by the Noble Lady Baroness Cousins about its impact on some of the world's most vulnerable women and girls. I note that expert legal commentators have described the Equality Impact Assessment on the bill as superficial and inadequate. I'd add that many of the same concerns apply to LGBTIQA+ refugees, a point also made by the Noble Lord, Lord Ponsonby. And also, it is a grave concern for the impact on children, as the Noble Lord, Lord Bishop of Durham said. In other contexts, we've heard the government talking positively about trauma-informed practice, for example in prisons. Well, this bill is the very opposite of that. It can only be described as abusive of trauma survivors. I note the briefing from the Royal College of Psychiatrists, which says, quote, "A background context of basic physical and emotional security, including an assurance of safety and freedom from harm, is a key factor in recovery from most, if not all, mental disorders," end quote. This bill is clearly actively designed to take refugees who are already in situations far from ideal security and rip out not just the rug, but the entire ground from under them. Refugees whose circumstances, as the Noble Lady Baroness Uden pointed out, we have very often played a major part in creating. Now, I note also the extremely useful briefing from the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health with its concerns about Part 4 of the bill with age assessments, particularly its note that the use of ionising radiation for the purpose is absolutely inappropriate. Perhaps the Noble Lady the Minister can give us an assurance that that will not happen, or a broader assurance as asked for by the Noble Lady Baroness Neuberger. Now, one Noble Lord earlier described the Noble Lord the Minister's introductory speech as spirited. Well, coming so late to the long debate gives me a chance to look closely at the Minister's speech. Now, the Noble Lord the Minister said, and I quote, "The prevailing legal framework was not designed to cope with the type, and certainly not the scale, of mass migration we've seen in recent years." But of course, this bill is not about migration. It's about asylum. The foreign-born population of the UK is about 9.5 million people. That's about the same number of Britons who live in other countries around the globe. Of those, that foreign-born population, 5% have come here as refugees. That's about 388,000 people. That's 0.6% of the total resident population. We are not talking about a mass at all. Now, the Noble Lord the Minister issued a challenge. What steps should be taken to achieve the objective of controlled immigration that many profess to support? Close quote. Well, I think that challenge has been answered by many Noble Lords, perhaps most notably and powerfully by the Noble Lord, Lord Dubs. What we need to do is provide safe, orderly routes to apply for asylum. But I think the Minister was seeking numbers. Well, I've got a suggestion. As many Noble Lords have noted, France welcomes proportionally about 3 times as many refugees as the UK does. That could be a starting point. Set up an orderly, timely, effective system, fairly distributed around the world, recognising the UK's place in creating the circumstances forcing people to move, to welcome 3 times the numbers arriving now. And in that context, it really struck me, looking at the Minister's speech, that there was a phrase that was missing, a word that, in your Lordship's House proceedings, clearly seems to be obligatory in almost every government contribution. That word is world leading. Beating, maybe, either or. We're clearly not world leading in saying refugees welcome. 39% of the world's refugees are hosted in 5 countries: Turkey, Colombia, Uganda, Pakistan and Germany. Now, the Noble Lord, Lord Woolley, has also already very powerfully talked about Clause 9, deprivation of citizenship, and I have to declare an interest that this also affects me. But I don't just want to attack this new provision. I want to say we should abolish the whole power to deprive people of citizenship. If we trace back the history of this, and I'm afraid it goes back to when the largest party on this side of the House was sitting on the government benches. And it's a classic case of hard cases producing bad law. It's one of the many examples of knee-jerk responses to populist outcries, cheer-led by the organs of a handful of right-wing media tycoons, that are eating away at the freedom and rights of us all. Once principles are conceded, the exercise of power always expands in reach and in force. Now, my noble friend said we should throw out this bill, and I agree, but I've got a final proposal for the noble Lord the Minister. This is my proposal. Let's throw this bill out, keep the few good clauses that are in there, and put them into a refugees welcome bill.